This is the first episode of a series of video reports which will be gathered together under a title such as How to Put On a Fringe Theatre Play in London Without the Foggiest. So I'm going to need a lot of professional help. Fortunately, I'm privileged to have a visit today from a professional freelance journalist. I've recently read 4 of her pieces in The Guardian and 1 in The Independent, and she is Frankie Mullen.
So hi Chuck.
Hi Frankie.
So you've written a play, Warehouse of Dreams. Can you tell me what it's about?
It's set in a refugee camp in the Middle East, and it's about the moral decisions that aid workers have to make on a daily basis, confronting the problems which arise in a refugee camp. I think I'd probably best describe it by reading the synopsis. Moriarty runs a refugee camp. It's a city of troubled people, growing like a tumor, and it's a 24/7 job. The mountains of food, water, and excrement, the thievery, the threats and protests, aggrieved co-workers, a hostile press, young girls sold into sexual slavery. He can tough that out. His nightmares erupt from his demons that eat at his soul: loneliness, remorse, and ineradicable guilt. He's made a mistake. He did something, or he failed to do something somewhere in his career, and that's what eats at his soul.
Okay, so what inspired you to write this?
A 7-day train trip to Syria. So we set out the back end of March 2011 and decided, well, when we get there, we'll see if it's quiet. If it's quiet, we'll go across the border. And we got there 7 days later, in the early part of April 2011, and it was quiet. And so we went across the border. However, we didn't see any of the tourists because the foreign office had issued warnings, and as soon as the plane loads of tourists were flying in, they touch down, turn around, and fly them back out again. Okay, that got us interested in the Middle East. I then spoke to a chap who's a good friend who actually ran a refugee camp, not in the Middle East, but in Haiti, and I was absolutely astonished by what goes on, what can go on there, the thievery, the mafioso that spring up to run the camp, the threats that are made to the people running the camp, and I found it absolutely astonishing. So that interested me. And then I began to read reports about what was going on in the refugee camps in the Middle East. And those 3 things came together: my own experience in Syria, these tales from a manager of a camp, and news reports.
So in your opinion, what sort of character would it be that could handle all the stresses of a refugee camp, and what sort of person do you think it takes?
Well, that's one of the conflicts in the play. The protagonist, Moriarty, is a seat-of-the-pants guy. He's done it all by experience. He's learned by experience. On the other hand, you have the more professional type, particularly younger people, who do it more by the rule book. But people who do it, I think, they're marvelous. They're tough, they're dedicated, whatever their attitudes to how they do their work are. And it takes a toll on them, and that's one of the things the play is about, because aid workers often spend long periods of time away from their family, marriages break up, they lead monastic existences, they give up a lot of themselves. They are victims too.
You've got a really strong, timely script. What happens next?
There are, I discovered, possibly 100 Fringe theatres in London. There really are.
Okay.
From ones that you will know well and have heard of, to others which are more occasional, but I think there's about 100 of them altogether. I got through 15 of them before I found the right theatre for me. And it's a chicken and egg. Do you go to get the theatre first and then try to find a director, or do you say, I've got a director, and then get the theatre? And in fact, I did it that way around. I was very fortunate to find a young director who's got a very good track record and is very keen on the play and is very experienced. And although he's only 28 or so, he's teaching me quite a lot.
That's brilliant.
And I'm very fortunate to have found a theatre that is equally keen to take it on. And we had our first meeting on Monday, 2 days ago, in which for the first time the director and the theatre got together. Now the other remarkable thing I found out was that in Fringe theatre, most of these actors are working for nothing.
Wow, okay.
Absolutely nothing. Or they may be paid a little bit for the performance, but nothing for rehearsal. Because the money just isn't there in the Fringe theatre. Now, there are two views you can take on this. One is that it's exploitation of youthful ambition, and it's very unpleasant, and there's in fact at the moment quite a lot of concern about that, and some noted people in the theatre world have been making demonstrations about it. On the other hand, you could say, well, you know, if every Fringe production had to pay equity rates, very few of them would get on the boards, and the opportunities for young people would dry up, and you always hear the stories about somebody who was nobody and worked for nothing, and then a few weeks later they were a star. The Star is Born, and it happens. So there's a balance there. But what I want to do, I want to be able to pay them more than I can pay them, and so I've applied to the Arts Council for a grant, and we'll see what happens on that. We'll know in a few weeks' time. One way or another, we will go ahead. The show will go on.
Brilliant.
But I would rather it go on with a very happy cast who are actually being paid at least a minimum wage, or maybe a living wage, or maybe a bit more.
And can you tell me a bit about the director?
He's a take charge kind of guy. He's not just a director, he's a producer, thank God, because I need his help. And he's also a dramaturg, so he's already been, you know, when you write a play, or when I write a play and I finish it, I think there it is, 100%, couldn't possibly be improved. That's before anybody else sees it.
Right.
You then show it to people who know what they're doing, and know a little bit about the theatre or drama or writing, and suddenly you get a fresh perspective that just makes it so much better. And he's already done that. I just spent 2 weeks on holiday rewriting it on lines that he suggested, and he's made an enormous contribution already. I've still got to do another rewrite, and I'm sure when we start doing the run-throughs at the end of August, there will be more rewriting, and I'll be taking an active role in that.
So what, through this whole experience, what do you feel like you've learned as the beginning steps, but you've had to do lots of research already, and what have you learned about the theatre world at this stage?
Well, to me, I mean, it's like going down a rabbit hole, and you can emerge into a totally different world with a lot of exotic characters. Some of them are a bit unprofessional. I mean, I contacted 15 theatres by email or by telephone, and a number of them just didn't bother to respond. Even though I said, you know, I've got capital up front, can we do a show together? And no response, and I just find that totally unprofessional from people who on their website say we are fantastically interested in new writing and that sort of thing. So you've got to be prepared for that sort of thing. But there are also some incredibly professional and good people there, like the artistic director of our theatre, which is the Lion and Unicorn Theatre, a pub theatre in Kentish Town. And George, who is the artistic director there, is very strapped down, very professional. And he's another producer, so I've got these two guys holding my hands. I think I'm going to be all right.
That's brilliant. So what is the next step from here?
The next step is, well, to see about the Arts Council funding, whether we can afford to pay the actors. We will then be advertising for actors and for crew towards the end of August. We'll then go into rehearsals back end of September, and the production goes on Armistice Day, 11th of November, for 4 weeks at the Lion and Unicorn Theatre, which is a great pub as well, by the way.
Perfect.
So, you're coming, I trust, on
I'll be there
November
for sure.
13th is press night.
Brilliant.
It's 2 nights we're on, and then press night, and you come in.
I'll be there for sure. It's very exciting.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you. some creative matters have come up, nothing to do with the script or the play itself, but for the promotional material that we'll be using with the play. Firstly, you will recall that I read a synopsis of the play in the last episode. Now, when I showed this to my friend Gerald, he said, wow, that sounds like a pretty grim evening. But it's not a grim evening. There's a lot of human drama in it, and there's quite a lot of humor as well. So the synopsis, which will be used in material like this, has been rewritten, and you can see the revised synopsis on the website. A more important matter was that of the key visual. Now, the key visual, again, is used in promotional material of all kinds, but one of the problems is it will be used also very small in electronic media. So it's got to have a lot of impact as well as summarizing what the play is all about. Now, the key visual that my graphic designer John and myself came up with was this, which shows an infant in a photograph in a genuine refugee camp with the scorpion as a symbol representing all the threats that surround a child like that. So I thought that was a very good summation of the play, and because of the scorpion, had a great looming impact. George is the artistic director of the Lion and Unicorn Theatre. Dan is the director of the play. And although they liked the general presentation, they felt that the overwhelming presence of the scorpion suggested some kind of science fiction movie. Now, I could have reacted to that by saying, well, look, you know about theatre, I know about advertising, I spent 40 years in advertising. In fact, I wrote the book about advertising. Well, here it is. Available in all good bookshops. Well, actually, that's not true. It's only available on Amazon. But anyway, that wouldn't have got us anywhere. So, in fact, when I thought about it, I thought, well, could be maybe they have a point. And so we tried another couple of ideas. One was to remove the scorpion entirely, and although that might work, we substituted a trenchant bit of dialogue from the script to give it some drama. But the threat is gone, no threat at all. So possible, but I wasn't that keen on this. But I think the resolution that I then suggested to them was to reduce the size of the scorpion so that the eye goes first to the little girl, which is, of course, the key problem, and then we discover the threat. So I'm going to send this off to the lads to see what they think. Fingers crossed. I'm in Kentish Town and I have some very good news. We have been looking for a charity that we can cooperate with in the production of Warehouse of Dreams, and we found one, a very relevant charity that has to do with children and refugee camps. And I'm at outside their office now in Kentish Town, and we're going to go in for a meeting. I'm in the offices of War Child, which by an amazing coincidence is in Kentish Town, where the Lion and Unicorn Theatre is. So, what could be a better omen than that? We're here to find out a bit more about how War Child works, and here we have a member of the fundraising team, Katie Johnson. Morning, Katie.
Hello.
Now, there are lots of NGOs, of course, working in war zones. What is the role specifically of War Child? How does it fit in?
Child protection is the umbrella to every single programme that we do. There are three themes to our work. As I say, child protection is kind of the umbrella for the other two as well. So we also do education and livelihoods. The children in conflict are incredibly vulnerable in a very different way that adults are. If that trauma is left untreated, it can actually be very devastating for a lifetime. One of our core areas of working is to deliver psychosocial support, and that means having children in our child-friendly spaces, and we carry out role play and group exercises. We do a lot of dancing and singing, some music, and really it's a chance for children to kind of understand what they're going through and work through their emotions. When children come and start a course of deals, they can be so traumatised, and we have had experiences where children won't speak after they've witnessed some awful atrocities that happen in conflict. There's also, quite violent outbursts from children as well, just as a result of them witnessing some awful things.
And can it be treated? Is it successfully treated? Do they get better?
Well, a lot of the children that we work with after the course, they have. You can really feel a sense of hope, and some of the children, they hope to grow up to be doctors and lawyers. And I think that's a really positive thing when you start a program and you're too traumatised to talk, to go outside, to not really have any hope, and then at the end to actually think, you know what, I do have a future and I can achieve whatever I want to achieve.
Well, this ties in very much with my play, because there is a girl featured in it who is in exactly that sort of situation, a bit older, the age of 14, but she is at the point where she could live with trauma all her life, and indeed in physical captivity, or she can realize her ambitions to become a professional. So the linkage is marvelous. Well, the Lion and Unicorn Theatre is just down the road, so I hope you'll get all of your staff to come and see it at some time.
Absolutely.
No prizes for guessing where I am today. I'm up here to check out the competition.
Now, you may remember that we applied for an Arts Council grant so that we could pay better wages to the cast and the crew. You don't remember? Well, cut to flashback.
In Fringe theatre, most of these actors are working for nothing.
Well, okay.
Absolutely nothing. Or they may be paid a little bit for the performance, but nothing for rehearsal. Because the money just isn't there in the Fringe theatre. What I want to do, I want to be able to pay them more than I can pay them, so I've applied to the Arts Council for a grant, and we'll see what happens on that. We'll know in a few weeks' time. Bad news is that the Arts Council turned us down. What they said was the artistic aims of the project were not sufficiently outlined. Well, I don't know what that means. I'm not a Michelangelo. All I want to do is put on a play that informs, involves, entertains people, provides some work for crew and for cast, and perhaps through our connection with War Child, does a little bit good as well. But that door closing opens another door. It was a catch-22 situation. If we had got the Arts Council grant, we could not have directly raised money for War Child, because the Arts Council itself is a charity, it can't support another charity. The sun has come out, so now the good news. We're going to raise our own grant through a crowdfunding program. And it's a 2-for-1, because most of the money, 80%, will go to the cast and crew to improve their wages, but 20% will go to fund the humanitarian activities of the War Child.
So if you think the people who put themselves on the line night after night in Fringe theatre to entertain us should be better rewarded, and would like to support the work of War Child, have a look at our website. Go to crowdfunder.co.uk/angel. There are rewards for you too. There are tickets to the show, of course, and you can even be invited to join the cast at the press party. And even if you can't come to the show, we're going to print the program in the form of a little book like this one, which will include not only the photographs of rehearsal and that sort of thing and the cast, but also the complete text of the play. You get a little treat to support the efforts of the cast and crew, and you give children whose lives have been torn apart by the war a chance to build a future for themselves. So everybody wins. This is the first read-through of the script to see how it works when some professional actors have a go at it. It's not an audition. Some of these actors might eventually take a role in a play, but others are not considering it or are even not available. They're friends of the director, Dan, and the amazing thing is that they have all volunteered without any payment just to help us out. Theatre people are lovely people.
10 children are born into this camp every day. Tens of thousands of children have been vaccinated against measles, but now we've got a new situation.
Hello, Sabine. Come in.
Who's this?
The girl I told you about. Sabine.
She can't come in here.
The last day I went to school in my town, men came in with guns and they shot the teacher dead.
Let me get this straight. The UNHCR supplies the electricity to the camp, free,
That's right.
and these shop owners tap into it and run their businesses and make money from the refugees.
They are refugees themselves.
My people were promised caravans. Where are the caravans?
Any children?
We waited too long. He said he didn't want any. And then...
Found somebody who could make one.
Girls do what they are told.
You should think very hard about this one, Colonel. You are offending the laws of your host country.
If that girl comes to any harm...
Don't threaten me.
Those tents are intended for the refugees.
We're going to create a Ministry of Energy. And the guys who are stealing the electricity, I'm going to put them in charge of it.
There has been a mistake. Those who made the allegations against Mr. Stanton have lied.
This is very good news. I will now be able to make the kind of report I wanted to make.
That's just the point I was trying to make to the journalists. Experience is important, but you can't just drop into an aid work and play it by ear anymore.
Thoughts, ideas, any insight into the individual character arcs? Because obviously the one thing for us which is more difficult is that singular, kind of narrow perspective of a character arc you take, and what the audience get, what as an actor you get from what's on the page.
Yeah, I think you see an awful lot of facets to him. I like that you see that he's not asexual, that you get that side from him as well, that you get the backstory as well, that he may at one time have been an idealist in similar vein to Stanton. His knowledge of the situation seems greater than any other individual.
He's the one that's the educator of the circumstances that these people are in. Sacrifices and choices that have to be made come through Moriarty, and it's very seamlessly put through him, through his character. It's not forced. It comes through quite naturally through the dialogue that he has, which I think is really interesting.
The fact that she's in a dream sequence and the fact that she's woken up in the middle of the night and all she wants to do is sleep is to get to see different faces of Karen. behind professional journalists. So the dream one, I took her a bit more playful, a bit more teasy, funny.
I'll write you another play.
And here's
Oh, that's a good one.
She's brave, but also she's there because she's desperate, and there's a real reason for her being there. She's not just sort of born with this bravery. There's a reason for her being there and purpose behind everything she's doing. And the fact that in the dream it really shows her to be this, she's still a child and a girl.
Sometimes I did get a little bit lost. I think especially in the plane scene.
Yeah.
It was almost like you were on the plane as well, and for a moment I did forget that it was a dream sequence myself, just reading it.
Well, that was
and then it snapped
that is
back
when
in.
it does happen.
Yeah. But then it did snap back in because obviously at the end of each dream sequence something horrific happens.
If the dreams have no effect on Moriarty, why show the dreams?
But they're not, because they're an insight into a subconscious that we don't see anywhere else, because he doesn't talk about, he can never talk about...
He never shows vulnerability.
It's like we say, you're only ever yourself, your true self when you're on your own. It's the multiple faces of humanity. And that if it's the only chance we ever see a vulnerability to him, and like the call back to his daughter, and then his thoughts and feelings.
Creeps in the sort of humanity of her saying, I want to give a good report. But to see this corruption and bribery, she can't help herself showing her heart.
Just that's exactly what you're doing, isn't it? Is it just please let everything be okay?
Yes, it's so horrendous reality to have to own that and therefore get it sorted and withdraw the money and
Right.
replace you.
Right. No.
Therefore no romance, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, was the cousin ever really there? Was he not? Is that an excuse? And that added to the questions, which made that exciting.
I think by the end he's got a little bit of respect because he realises he made the mistake of talking to the press. And it sort of dawns on him. Moriarty is his superior, he's older, he's more experienced.
These people know more about these characters than I do. Is Moriarty pragmatic or corrupt? The ending needs rethinking. I've got some more rewriting to do. The Lion and Unicorn Theatre is on Gaisford Street in Kentish Town, North London. It's halfway between Kentish Town Station on the Northern Line Tube and Kentish Town West on the London Overground. Just a 5-minute walk from either one, and plenty of buses run up and down Kentish Town Road. Kentish Town Station is also a rail link. You can get there by Thameslink from as far away as Bedford and Luton in the north, and Brighton and Sevenoaks in the south. Welcome to funky Kentish Town. And welcome to the Lion and Unicorn pub. George Salis has been running a little jewel of a theatre here for 7 years. It's upstairs and it has 60 seats. The Lion and Unicorn is a jolly good pub with great beer, a fun attitude, and lots of comfortable places to sit. It has an excellent kitchen too. Evening performances are at 7:30, so you could book a table for an early supper at around 6 or after the play around 9. Saturday matinees start at 3:30 p.m, so you could have lunch first. We look forward to seeing you there. Around 260 actors have applied for one of the 6 roles in our play. Our director, Dan Phillips, has invited 20 of them to audition today.
With Karen, I asked her to prepare a bit of her to camera piece.
Yes.
I've asked them to be off text to learn that off by heart so that they could present it to us as if it was a news report. I've also given a bit of the scene with Stanton to see her investigative journalism as well. So she's the only one who has two, because there's two very different sides of her that we need to see.
Let me get this straight. The UNHCR supplies the electricity to the camp, free.
Yeah, that's right.
And these shop owners tap into it to run their businesses and make money from the refugees.
They are refugees themselves.
But they don't pay for the electricity.
Yes, they play, but not to us.
To who then?
The leaders.
What leaders?
Community leaders, refugees like themselves.
Gang leaders?
Leaders of the neighbourhood councils. They control the strip, they sell sites to the shopkeepers.
They own the land.
Let me get this straight. The UNHCR supplies electricity to the camp, free.
That's right.
And these shop owners tap into it to run their businesses and make money from the refugees?
They are refugees themselves.
But they don't pay for their electricity.
Yes, they pay, but not to us.
To who then?
The leaders.
What leaders?
Community leaders, so refugees like themselves.
Gang leaders?
Leaders of the neighbourhood councils. They control this strip. They sell sites to the shopkeepers.
They own the land?
And so she just wants to get the quotes that will back that her story. So I just want to push that kind of slight aggression of that kind of those targeted answers.
The stench of human corruption hangs over this sprawling camp like a dirty cloud.
The stench of corruption hangs over this sprawling camp like a dirty cloud.
I have this idea, and it says Matt, and he's listening to me, and I could potentially make a difference.
Mr. Stanton, please. You are a good man. We know that already about you. You would not compromise me.
I didn't make these rules. These are the rules of your culture. We both have to obey them.
In our culture, women are used to bending the rules just a little bit. The people outside can see me. The door is open. We are not in the same room.
You're a good man, we know that already. You will not compromise me.
I didn't make these rules. These are the rules of your culture. We both have to obey them.
In our culture, women are used to bending the rules a little bit. Everyone can see me from outside. The door is open. We are not in the same room.
Mr. Stanton, please. You are a good man. We know that already about you. You would not compromise me, huh?
I didn't make these rules. These are the rules of your culture. You both have to obey them.
In our culture, women are used to bending the rules just a little bit. Everyone outside can see me here. The door is open. We are not in the same room.
You throw us sacks of grain at feeding time. We are not animals in a zoo.
We used to go to supermarkets and choose our own food. We used to go to the supermarkets and choose what we want. We used to put fresh vegetables and fruit and meat into our trolleys. Just like you do in your country. Why don't you build some supermarkets?
You throw us sacks of grain at feeding time. We are not animals in a zoo. We used to go to supermarkets and choose what we wanted. We used to put fresh food, vegetables, and meat in our trolleys, just like you do. Why don't you build us some supermarkets?
You told us that everybody will be moved into caravans by the end of Ramadan. That was July. We will want to talk about the toilets too. This morning the toilets were not emptied.
He's being pushed into a corner, so he goes, right, the toilets are shit. And let's talk about that. Okay. So it's that kind of really getting to him, because he's this very proud man, very strong man, but yet Moriarty just has this way of twisting things. He's a great politician, is what Moriarty is.
You must learn to understand our culture.
I'm not satisfied that you are the voice of your people. Oh, you don't even speak Arabic as well as I do. Owing to your misfortune of having been educated in England.
This camp is not fit for humans! We don't want to stay here! We want to go home!
And we are going home too at the close of a productive day. We found 5 of our 6 actors, but not our protagonist, Moriarty. We're going to have to hold another audition. We had a very successful audition last week. We signed 5 actors, but we're still missing 1. And that 1 is our protagonist, Moriarty. So we're here today at the Cockpit Theatre looking for Moriarty.
You've got so many layers and levels of these the way to go. You know, God, I would so believe. I was watching you both together, you know. Really. A young, charming guy with a glamorous, you know, gorgeous older lady. It works perfectly. I watched them both and I could see them. But I think that's a performance thing. I'd be wary about putting too much exposition. I know you kind of pictured him as older. The thing for me is that the older he gets, for me, the tireder and more run down he gets, because it's a longer life having family leave you, no loved ones and no friends, and that will take its toll.
Yeah.
Like
It's slightly less interesting to see the cynicism in an older person.
Well, yeah, because it's a bit more natural that he spent his time. It's like kind of Griselda we talk about. Actually, she's lost all this and not had that life, so she is quite cold and distant. Whereas I think Moriarty still has, at the beginning of the play, we have to believe that he is the man to set this up and to make it a success.
Got that energy.
And has that energy and that youthfulness, no matter how old they are, that you go, yes, that is the man for the job. So that when we get the cynicism later on, we see the man who's worn down. For me, that's why we can't go too old. The play deals with that balance of idealism and realism, and also about the corruption as well that goes on.
Hi. Welcome to Helena Handbasket. Moriarty.
So Hassan is one of the gang leaders that runs the camp.
I run the camp. He's one of the people I have to work with. Nobody's elected me. But I do run a city of 125,000 people.
Just push that intimidation maybe as far as you can within that paragraph, and really lay down a little bit, you know, this place is vile, you have no idea what it is like. Really, that's what I see a slightly darker side of it.
We can conclude then that the UHCR is running a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah.
I can't change the culture. I can't beat the local corrupt say that line again, sorry.
Can we conclude then that the UNHCR is running a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah?
I can't change the culture. I can't beat the corrupt local leaders. All I can do is work with them and somehow try to bring them around from the dark side.
Oh, that's one way of doing it.
And don't forget, this isn't, Moriarty and Griselda are not a romantic relationship who are going to get married and have kids and live after them. That's not them. You've got 2 very lonely people who, for a brief moment in time, see something in themselves. Now, like I said, I do not believe that they get together in any shape or form, but they see something. And whether there's an age gap, I think, is irrelevant. That comes down to the performers finding that moment where they see that compassion.
Try and keep changing directions, not walking in circles. Always looking for someone to throw the ball to.
There's no robbing valleys to ruin here. It's a graveyard for camels. Nothing but sand, scorpions and snakes. It's quite flat and close to the border. One spot's as bad as the next.
How far is the border?
6 kilometres.
And how will you get them here from the border?
They keep on walking. Unless they're too sick, or too old, or too young. Then we take them in trucks or ambulances. On the tarmac.
If he's right, it's a huge undertaking. But if anyone can carry it off, Moriarty can. He's a multi-talented man. But that includes a talent for exaggeration. Well above national...
You throw us sacks of grain at feeding time. We're not animals in a zoo. We used to have supermarkets and choose what we wanted. We used to put fresh fruit, vegetables and meat in our trolleys, just like you do in your country.
If you want to avoid stoppages, stop tapping wires off the hospital's electricity. When their electricity cuts out, patients die.
We are a proud people. Some of us would prefer to die than to live here like animals in a pen.
That moment in the text, he is very much a whirlwind entrance. You know, he needs to come in and just. Right up there, energy, crazy, go a bit nuts.
Salam alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. I bring you a gift, Lord Mayor.
You call me mayor and you call yourself colonel. As a man who's the leader of his people, you won't understand it is the job of the mayor to say no. Everyone would like everything given to them. Dollars sprinkling down from the trees in the garden of heaven. It's normal to want everything for free, but that's not the real world.
You promised us everybody will be moved into caravans by the end of Ramadan.
That was going to go to university and you're going to train to become a doctor or a lawyer.
Or a proxy aid worker.
Oh, why not? Something where you can make a difference.
Aid workers don't make shit. I'm going to be a rapper.
Whatever. You still have to go to school.
What do they ever teach you in school? Don't you know the only way to get somebody to do what you don't want them to do is to put a Karanishkov to the head?
Look, Miss Know-it-all, I want you to keep a civil tongue in your head.
This is not a civil place.
It's an older person's view of a younger person, which kind of sounds distorted anyway.
She's
No
worse
offence.
than
I just mean. But it is that kind of distorted version of youth rather than we young youth. What? Because the fact that you think that as well, she's going to be. She's not going to be. She's going to be a rapper. That's what kids do. So it's just quite. So just be more playful. And it's quite funny.
Yeah.
Humorous and it brings attention.
Sure.
It's there.
This little girl is dead. You can tell because the blood is coming out of her ears and mouth.
Will that go in your report?
It's a detail. Geneva is only interested in the broad picture.
Yeah,
I turn away from him.
So yeah, walk,
I'm
walk,
serious.
and don't walk too slow. Literally, just head toward, nice stride towards the door. You turn, look her in the eye, your jacket, and once your jacket's up, you start to. It's the one hand that's.
Okay. You cannot help the multitude. They have to help themselves. And they're good at that round here. They help themselves to everything. Caravans, electricity, women.
I don't understand.
That's because you're not really here.
I'm here.
No! No, you are in a winter wonderland of snowy mountains and mountains of money in the bank. You and your colleagues sit in a glass-walled conference room.
So, but again, I don't think that it's the shouting.
No,
there's
it's just
power.
just
it's
more
a physical thing. So look and the hand has just been very definite. People only raise their voice when they haven't got power, isn't it? Normally.
Okay.
So just do that cross when you push the back. What's the push in the back?
Oh, right.
We both want to help people.
You cannot help a multitude. They have to help themselves, and they're good at that out here. They help themselves to everything. Caravans, electricity, women.
Don't understand.
That's because you're not really here.
I'm here.
No. You are in a winter wonderland. Snowy mountains. Mountains of money in the bank. You and your colleagues sit in a glass-walled conference room around a rosewood table as long as a bowling alley. With a pencil in each hand and a pad.
In the shop.
Have we done the hard work? So, this is quite a small way. So should we start at the top?